Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. You can find me, my books, and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com, as well as on Amazon. I have another announcement. Please notify your Attorney General in your state regarding solar panels made by Sonova Generac Systems. If you're having any difficulty with this company at all, go to your state's Attorney General site and fill out that complaint form. I've got a brand new guest on. I have Yvette Baudelaire on. She's from Hennepin County, Minneapolis. And Yvette has a 17-year fight against a corrupt family court system, a rigged foster care system, greedy lawyers, unequipped social workers. Now, Yvette has a master's degree, and she is also a Citizens Police Academy graduate, a chair for Human Rights Council, and she undergoes one more legal and judicial encounter aiming to protect her son and herself from the very system apparently created to protect, at least according to the U.S. Constitution. Now, her story is not unique. Across Minnesota, parents fighting to protect their children face a system that often silences them in favor of financial interests. Minnesota's family courts, rather than serving justice, have in many cases become enablers of the trauma and torture. Yvette's fight is far from over. Her unwavering determination highlights a pressing question. How many more families must suffer before the system prioritizes children over profit? And I welcome you, Yvette Baudelaire. You've got a tale to tell. And I just met you a couple days ago. And I'm so glad to have you on because your story is just reeking with corruption. I welcome
Uh, I appreciate it. It is a real honor to be here and have the opportunity to tell my story with the purpose of bringing light to one more case that it is epidemic in our state, Minnesota, and our country that is throwing under the bus our next generation, which is our children, and compromising to very exhausting point the life of the parents who are committed to the role as a parents to protect their children from any social disease, including abuse or trauma.
you.
And so thank you so much for having me here today.
Right. And you had told me that you're also an interpreter for the police. So you're very valuable to these issues of your career. And
Uh,
you have a
yes.
judge, or was it a magistrate that wants to jail you for contempt?
That's correct. In 2019 and 2020, I had a referee who, in family court, that without due process, decided that it was time for me to be spending some time in the cell, as she mentioned, due to the fact that I reminded her of my constitutional rights when she was not respecting my due process and going through the administrative process of ex parte without even giving me the right to a hearing to explain at least the context of any of the situations that were happening with my son, who that time was about 12 years old. And
Mhm.
yes, I am a simultaneous interpreter and a forensic speech analyst. I am trained by very respectable institutions that one of the purposes is to precisely sort out from content the truth,
Mhm.
squeeze the truth out of an action, out of the context. And yet, my history of 17 years of legal battles, not only with the father of my son, but with family court, with juvenile court, with the foster care system, is plenty abundant on lies. And that's the paradox that I face every day when I am being accused of A, B, or C, and I can, with my skills that I'm trained on, that not only because it's my experience, but also when I read it, I see, but this is quite obvious. It's self-explanatory that this is a lie. How is that possible? That works, but it does. That's the magic of corruption. That the reality gets dismissed and the narratives of the specific people can have so much power.
Exactly. Well said. And you're stuck now with Judge Jean Burdorf?
That's correct. This week I had to appear in court, in criminal court, to face serious charges caused by a situation that happened in last summer of 2024, in which I was trying to protect my estranged son from Children Protection Services, unequipped, unlicensed social workers, a greedy foster parent, neglectful judge in juvenile court, Colette Routel, a malicious prosecutor, Therese Price, who had set this Shakespearean play, this plot where they have to somehow purge their own issues and name me the scapegoat of it under the premises that they are after the best interest of the child.
Which is actually the worst interest of the child.
Indeed,
Because of
absolutely.
what your son was going through, and he was running away from the foster home that he was at.
Correct. Yeah,
And yeah, right. And you were helping him. You were bringing him food, and you were trying to bring him food and water.
food, and I was trying to provide his medications. I have to run through different pharmacies to provide the medication that the foster parent was supposed to provide. I was providing food and medical help because my son was suffering from a heart issue that the foster parent did not want to recognize, did not want to admit, and called it just a panic attack, when in fact my son was having real heart issues. And I have to procure assistance for the emergency room. I had to basically do what any other normal parent should do, but I had to do it in a way that I was not being punished or coerced, because the foster parent was setting me in a position where I could beg to help my son and provide financial means for what my son needed, considering that the state was paying the foster parent to do that. I was helping with homework. I was helping with attendance to school. I was helping with clothing. I was helping with sorting out what guiding my son in what I will call a telecommuting parenting job, through different mechanisms for my son to basically be safe and grow healthy the best he could, considering the circumstances and the coercion from the foster parent, who was very happy receiving money and all this help, but under the threat that if I didn't do what he wanted me to do, he will report me to the police and to the court, juvenile court, that I was contacting my son without permission. And one time things didn't go his way. My son was engaging in not healthy circumstances with teenagers at the school and at the house of the foster parent. I brought out that to the attention of the foster parent. The foster parent denied it, and my son ran away trying to protect himself. And when I went to help my son, the foster parent reported me to the police, and the police opened an investigation in Egan, the city of Egan. They didn't even talk to me. They asked me for a DNA sample. On an email, they said, come over, we're going to take your DNA sample. And you and I know that's not constitutional, right? I am graduated from the Citizens Police Academy. I know that is not constitutional. The senior detective of Egan Police was asking me to provide a DNA sample. I refused to do that, and they continued with investigation and they pressed charges against me. As a result, I was a couple of days ago being fingerprinted in the criminal court system in the state of Minnesota, in Minneapolis, Hennepin County, and I have to present myself, appear for my arraignment, and from that, they will negotiate, because that's what normally they do. They negotiate your charges. You either want a felony, or you want a misdemeanor, or you want a gross misdemeanor. What are you up to? What is the menu here? Because we all can negotiate, because this is a frivolous, baseless, lack of merit accusation and charges that they know that if I go full extent to a trial, they will get sued in the end.
Oh, that's what should happen. So you're facing arraignment.
Correct.
When will that be?
March 17 of 2025.
What a waste of taxpayer dollars.
It is the entire battle that I had gone through 17 years of my life, and noted my son is going to be 18 in a few months. That means my entire motherhood with my child has been depleted, tainted, hampered by the family court, by juvenile court, by CPS, by social workers. And it's such a frivolous waste of money. I will tell you, court evaluators for custody that came to see me when the father of my son filed about 5 times in 11 years of his life, my son's life, for custody, sole custody, since the day one, with no basis, that when they came to do my evaluation, if I was a fit mother, their response in a report said, appears to be that Yvette is a pathological liar. Her house was excessively clean. And for someone who is a mother and going through cancer treatment, which I was, the house looks like a staged. And we could even see the tags on the bunk beds that Yvette had for her son, which means she stayed there like a show in a theater. And I end the quote. That's the report of the custody evaluator who decided that the legal custody should go to the abusive father, who had felony charges expunged from violent assaults that he had prior to the birth of my son, that I was not aware of until I did discovery. I found out, I was never told, and I did not do my due diligence finding out the background of who was going to be the father of my son, right? So yeah, that's one of the things. Is a waste of tax money.
Right.
People. I put it this way: people in the state of Minnesota are paying for the father of my son to get his way. And for these individuals, you call it judges, they're all public officers, judges or social workers or detectives in the police, they all get paid through tax money. They are not doing what the job duties in their contract tells them to do. They're doing an interpretation of it according to their personal agendas or their quote-unquote club agendas, because I believe these people get together to somehow obtain more profit
Uh-huh.
than what they could do by themselves. So and it's very, very interesting to see that when they recommend you a service such as therapy for quote unquote rehabilitation of your family, they always come up with the same providers. Like if we had Minnesota as a state of the size of the Vatican, and we have only 3 people available, it is just preposterous how that works. I'll give you an example. In juvenile court, Judge Colette Rotel received in 2021 my file from family court. That's number one. You're not supposed to do that. You are supposed to, family court stays out of juvenile court, because in juvenile court, the purpose is to repair and rehabilitate the family because the child was in need of protection. That's why it's called CHIPS. When my son went into juvenile court, I already have no custody. They took it away from me in family court. So once my son gets in juvenile court, the father is the one responsible, legally accountable for whatever had happened to my son. My son ended up in the hospital because of the chronic abuse he endured with his father when he was by himself with his father, and I had no contact allowed with my son. Then the juvenile court takes in, and the first thing that they do, they did put away the father rights in order for the state to take rights over my son. And then in that legal transition, the accusations were that my son was being abused. And they went and asked the father, you have 3 options. 1, deny it and go to trial. 2, admit it, but admit it that the child should go, or the teenager should go somewhere else, not with you, but you don't say why. Or the third one, you admit that you abuse your son. He didn't do any admissions. He just agreed for them to take the teenager away. And I thought, okay, this is my opportunity. Everything that I've been saying, that the father has been abused, the reasons that brought me to family court to lose my custody is because I was protecting my son. So here in juvenile court, I do it. Okay, here I am. I'm the mother. And the judge, Colette Routel, said, no contact with you either. Why? You don't have rights either. Why? Well, because family court says that you are this and this and this. Okay, but you just said, Judge, that this is the time to rehabilitate. This teenager, adolescent, is explaining that he's been abused. He doesn't want to go to the father. Who is the next of kin? Mom, let's consider me. Well, you need to do a psychological evaluation and do parenting classes. I did it. And I've done psychological evaluations every year because that's what the courts ones need to do. I do it. So I said, I had one that I had done about 8 months ago. Would you take that one? No. Do another one and go with the person that I tell you, and their recommendations, I will base my permissions for you to see your son based on those recommendations. I go under this evaluation for 3 months. The results are back 6 months later because that's what they take. And the recommendations were, if she has a individual therapist, continue with the therapy. There's no diagnosis for her. None, except chronic anxiety. Well, hello. I do have anxiety. Absolutely, I do. Then the judge denies it. No, I'm not going to give you access to your son. But you said 3 months ago that if I do this, I will. No, take parenting classes. Okay, I took it twice. 2 different providers, parenting classes that In one of them, they said, I don't understand why you're here.
Yeah.
Then they want me to do dialectic behavioral therapy for a year. The cost of that program, which is very taxing on your time, is 10 hours per week. It cost $46,000, the entire program. And the judge says, you go and do it. All right.
Dialect behavioral
DBT, dialectic behavioral therapy, which is basically to teach you how to regulate yourself, because there is this assumption in juvenile court imported from family court, and that is the narrative of the father of my son, that I am an individual that does not know how to control her emotions, that I have several psychological disorders, and I am not capable to control myself.
So your ex with all of these felonies, I guess he was expunged from?
They were expunged.
But still, okay, but still, the thing is, suddenly he becomes a physician or a psychiatrist and starts diagnosing you with all these mental health issues that the judge suddenly agrees with because she can't think for herself.
Exactly, completely agreed, to the point that I was recommended, quote unquote, to do the intake. I go to the clinic, I do the intake, I get denied. Number one, you don't qualify. Number two, you don't have any psychological disorders that merit that you have this service. Number three, your insurance will not approve it because you don't have a diagnosis. The insurance is not frivolous. It will not.
Mm-hmm.
And because I went through that, I explained it to the judge. You order me to go to take this is like if you believe I have cancer and I need to take chemotherapy even though I'm healthy. And I tell you that because I am a cancer survivor. I just finished my chemotherapy. I'm not even in remission. And the insurance said only if diagnosed will by subsequent allow a treatment. If you don't have the diagnosis, we will not do that. So it's a principle that insurance companies, healthcare insurance companies have. So I use it to explain the logic of the lack of logic on this judge. The judge said, go again to a different provider. So to make the long story short, matter of respecting time, I went through 3 different clinics. With one of the clinics was with one of the founders of this program in Minnesota. And this person said, you don't need DBT. Look at everything that you do throughout the day. Look at your accomplishments in consideration to all the challenges that you have for the last 16, 17 years of your life, including being a domestic abuse survivor and a cancer survivor. You don't qualify. Wrote a letter to the judge saying, this is detrimental for this individual to take this program. It's expensive. Her insurance will not approve it, and she will not benefit from it. She doesn't qualify. The judge said, go again. So 3 times. After those 3 times, I said, I am in a conundrum. You place me against the corner where you will only allow me to see my son if I take that program, but no facility will take me because I don't qualify. My insurance will not pay. And the offer from the social workers and the lawyers was the state will pay for your program. $46,000 to pay for the program that I don't need.
Oh, so the taxpayers are paying $36,000
$46,000.
Sorry, $46,000 for
Yeah.
the program.
If I said I do it, the tax people payers will have to contribute to that because the judge believes that she's a psychiatrist
Uh-huh.
and I have to do it. And I am denied access to my son, not a phone call, not a text message, because in her words, I am a danger for my son.
Oh, we all are. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
dangerous too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's Judge Colette Routel from juvenile court.
Mm-hmm.
And in my experience, being an interpreter for the courts, I am the voice of many cases, a neutral voice. I have been to cases that are similar to mine.
Mm-hmm.
And because in their chart, one or two factors don't align with their wishes, the people get a different, completely different outcome. You know, it's like, I will tell you, it's like this phenomenon where you squeeze a ball enough to make pressure, but you don't break it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you release it. And then you squeeze it again and you release it again. So for the public opinion, when they see the judges providing, quote unquote, a good outcome for some people, is gaslighting. They say, oh, yeah, no, that judge is not that bad. I didn't get that. Yeah, but other many do.
Mm-hmm.
That creates a sustained rape corrupted system because the public opinion is divided. So there is no consensus of the need of a change.
Mm-hmm.
I am most definitely convinced that the judicial discretion should be ripped from family court referees and judges, because in family court, referees get judicial discretion even though they're referees, they're not judges. I'm trained as a referee. I went back to law school. I became a mediator and a referee. Because when I saw the corruption in the very beginning of my case in 2010, I said, I'm going to go back to law school. I cannot afford to become a lawyer, but I'm going to become a mediator and a referee. And I did it. And I tell them what I learned, that I am supposedly obligated by law to apply my skills. They don't.
I think this judge doesn't like you because you're more educated than she is.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I have encountered quite a few professionals who, from the get-go, they don't like me. So that means if you analyze that a little bit, you will be very inclined to consider that there's a possibility that there is a confirmation bias that is preliminary. Someone told them something, right? And that takes me to think that in fact the court system, family court, juvenile, they negotiate their cases before the person appears in any given hearing. They talk. There's a club I know here in Minnesota that every year judges go in retreats, and not only judges but lawyers. They go to the same place. These retreats with guardian ad litem, they get together in a 3-day retreat. Well, we all are in the end humans. We know how people, it is logical to find that people behave in many different ways. And what makes you believe that they will not be in alignment with their oath to service instead of going and make profit from cases? And it's not a wild accusation. It is an old story. The thing in here in Minnesota, it is quite organized and appears, like I said to you, look into the patterns. You see, they promote the same providers for therapy, for evaluations, from intakes from children protection services, child protection services, that you think, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
It's an oddity that needs to be brought to light. And there are many groups of parents who've been affected, life destroyed by this. We all get in a risk of becoming homeless, lose our jobs, our everything because of an accusation that has no due process. And due process is one of the foundations, not only of the Constitution, but of the mere foundation of this country.
Not for these judges.
No.
They are running the courtroom lawlessly. They don't follow the Constitution.
No, they don't. They don't. And they have, at the snap of the fingers, the life of so many people.
Right.
My son, 17, has been fighting for his life with several medical issues that have been labeled as non-existent, because mom is brainwashing him to get sick. Mom has Mulhausen syndrome, and mom is making him be sick, so it causes financial burden to the father. Yet I'm the one that pays child support as today, or is demanded to pay child support as today. So there is a discrepancies that not even in a board game will make sense. You see, it's irrational, it's illogical, and when you see things that are so much with no sense, the explanation is there is corruption.
It's so corrupt. They're all playing in the same sandbox together, and I'm sure the opposing counsel that you're up against, Jill Brisbois.
Yeah, she's been the counsel of the father. When we were in family court, she got transferred with him she requested to be transferred in juvenile court. And her field is sex abuse crimes. And what are you doing representing someone in family court then?
Right. Yeah, that makes no sense.
No.
But they don't.
It is a very, very tragic story that can be perceived and approached and analyzed from many angles. Neither one is positive, but I have that's in my prayers, and it's in my everyday thinking, that what I nurtured in my son to look for blessings in disguise and looking for the silver lining and the opportunity to define all the obstacles and challenges, that if he is listening to this, or he ever listens to this, whatever he is, that he knows that it's not his fault, because growing up as a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 7-year-old, 9-year-old, 11-year-old that gets stripped away from his mother and doesn't get the gift of any explanation whatsoever, and has to deal with finding food with his friends in the streets, because the father is now an alcoholic that doesn't do anything for him. He didn't. That neglected him, that everything. At that such age, it is quite difficult. And my son is a warrior that I know that it will come out of this as an example that in the end, this is a corrupt system that has been given power and shouldn't have this power. And they should not be in a platform where their position gives them the opportunity to profit from suffering and tragedies of or crises or conflicts from other people. We are under the Constitution equal. We were created equal.
Mm-hmm.
So what makes you as a judge with no real understanding of the Constitution, of the Bill of Rights, and no real moral compass? What gives you the right to rip apart the life of a teenager, of a mother of that teenager, of the brother of the teenager, of the family of this teenager, just because you took at face value what someone in a revenge mode said? I have money, I'm gonna get the most expensive attorney in town, and she's crazy, and all of you are gonna agree with me that she is, and that's the end of the story. That's what we're gonna do, and that's the plot that unfolds. Is a phenomenon of a snowball that grows and grows and grows and becomes an avalanche and takes away people. It's tragic.
It's a playbook. Everything you said, and that has been mentioned also on this podcast from other guests, is they all start off with a silver bullet tactic of you're crazy, you're mentally ill. They have to prove all that. They forgot that. They just call out these accusations and then the
Correct.
judge runs with it. They all run with it.
They all run with it. They're waiting for it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and this happens to fathers too. So fathers got to look
Yes.
out too.
Yeah, I do have very close friends of mine, men, veterans, people who had risked their lives and defend this country overseas, Iraq, you name it, that they get in front of the judge and get disrespected, and they get their kids taken away simply because an accusation such as this.
Right.
Well, he has PTSD from war. He's crazy. I feel like he's going to kill me. And that's the play. That's a Shakespearean, dark Shakespearean play. The plot to make the profit machine going and to satisfy these people who are generating them income.
Mm-hmm.
And they get these children and these protected parents run by the train.
Our stories are somewhat similar, but because I disobeyed a judge's order for no contact. And my son was at basketball practice in the summer, and I emailed the dad and I said, hey, I can drive him to and back to your house after, basketball. How about if we do this? That way he doesn't have to ride his bike down a very dangerous road. And I'm not kidding you, because there were 3 deaths on that road.
Oof.
And I was very concerned because this child, he was probably 14 at the time, maybe. And he just emailed back and said, we're going to follow with the court orders.
Yeah, there's a playbook. They respond the same.
Yes.
That's exactly what they do. I did a little bit of research online, and I have found very concerning websites where they said, get back at your ex, you say this. And it is a playbook.
Right.
And they send it to you.
Right.
I pretended to be a father once, and I sent an email requesting this playbook, and I got it, and an online version. And it says, you just tell the judge that that she's crazy, that she doesn't feed the child, that she's volatile, that she's chaotic, that she's drama, and go appear to the judge with a suit, get a haircut the day before, and I seen it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not being fooled by this playbook. I seen it. My ex did it. the excess of other people. I have gone to court
Yeah, me too.
as in my role as an interpreter, or just as a audience in the gallery, just looking, and that's what they do. It is a playbook, not only for the judges, but for the people who are in a rage mood.
Right. I also think these attorneys are a big, massive problem as well.
They are because you see, with the confidentiality aspect between attorney and client privilege, they explain or they instruct their client to do a specific things or behave in a specific fashion with the purpose of poking and enticing, quote unquote, the beast, meaning the other person, right? I know this because, as I mentioned before, I went back to law school to become a mediator, a parenting consultant, parenting time evaluator, and a referee on in family cases. And I sat with all these lawyers, and during lunchtime, well, what is your goal? How many clients are you going to get? Well, I want to get like 3, 4. That's my goal. And I heard this more than once. Get them angry.
Yeah, they stir the pot.
Yeah, get them angry at each other, and you will see. I was stunned because I come from a physician's family. I was not born in the United States. I lived in several countries before coming here, pursuing my education and getting my mind a little more wider so I can function in a more enriching, positive way with people, see, because I don't believe in isolation, neither universalism that everything has to be one way. There is a way to understand and coexist. So, long story short, it's like bringing a patient to the hospital, and instead of providing the medication or the remedy for it, you said, okay, he has a problem on the lungs, he has an infection, give him a shot of bacteria. There's no repair. And that's what these lawyers do. They're a club. They have their organizations, and they have a way to make a living. Quite questionable. Social workers, the social worker from Child Protection Services that has the voice in court to handle my son in juvenile cases in the juvenile court, she doesn't even have a license. I wanted to file a complaint about her professional performance, and the Association of Licensed Social Workers said, we cannot proceed because her license expired in 2017 and she has not renewed it, so we cannot do anything. But she gets paid as if she had a license. Because she's a senior social worker. So I'm like, well, I wonder if I can get paid as a, I don't know, as a rocket science.
So then she should have been demoted to caseworker.
Yeah.
Caseworker pay, whatever that is.
And as the same social worker that when we had a hearing in juvenile court back in September of 2024, and my son was fooled he was put in a trap where they said, well, if you come back and you stop running away, we will get you a good foster care home, and we will not send your mom to jail. So my son was extorted to show up, to turn himself in exchange of my freedom, basically. So my son showed up with his attorney, and they said, okay, we're going to let your mom go, and we're going to squash your social services warrant. You are going to be placed in a nice foster home. And in their way out, they were taking him to a psychiatric ward in the hospital instead of a foster care home. And my son ran away.
Yeah.
From the social workers. They were with him, the guardian ad litem and the social worker, and he ran away when he realized that was the case. And that was the same psychiatric ward where his father took him years prior after he punched him. And he went to tell the school that my son, that his father punched him. Mm. So it's a very complex net here,
right.
Fabric of story. But when my son ran away back in September, and he was extorted for my freedom, I didn't know, the hearing ended, and I didn't know that my son had run away because he was taken with the social worker, and I stay in the court, just in the courtroom, in one of the conferences rooms, sitting, not being able to even move, in just sitting, not just sitting, right? And after about 45 minutes or so, I left because I had to go to work. Ironically, I had to go to work with the police department in Minneapolis. I go home in an Uber. I go to my apartment. I get my stuff. I grab my car. And as I am about to leave, I notice that a car follows me behind. And I'm always very concerned because I had the father of my son kept stalking me for years. And also because I don't want to have any car accidents. I had one where they crushed me in the back. So I'm sensitive to that. And I kept noticing the car follow me every turn I made. They kept following me. And then I look into the near mirror, and there's the social worker and the supervisor stalking me. Follow me in the city for about 14 minutes. And I went into the headquarters police parking lot because I had to go and interview a victim of a real crime. And they reported to court that I aided my son to escape. Well, my son was with you. How can I aid him? And second, that I had my son in the car. And that's why I have tinted windows in the back. And they forced me to reveal the name of the sergeant that I was working with that day. And I said, this is confidential. It's a serious, real case. I was working. I cannot reveal that information. No, you have to. They hacked through an order from Judge Colette Rotel. They took all my text messages from my iCloud, including the messages from the police. I work with the DEA and with the FBI doing interrogation for individuals who are committing real crimes, and I need to receive information that is confidential. They hack all of it. They got all. And I said, this is not legal. What I'm going to tell all these agencies, the state or federal, that you hack into my personal confidential information devices and grab all the information, because they were fishing for anything that I had contact with my son.
And this was CPS doing this?
That's correct.
Which is DHS?
That's correct.
In Minneapolis?
Indeed.
So, did the police department that you're working with, did they do anything about that?
No, I just notified them, and now that I know, and the judges have this aura of holiness around them in Minnesota. oh, if the judge said it, oh, that's it. I mean, the fact that they come in and you have to get up is self-explanatory. But I understand it's part of the protocol, but the understanding of people in Minnesota is that judges are untouchable, which they are, but for the wrong reason.
Oh, exactly.
Especially family court. The real judicial understanding of the application of the law only happens with federal judges. The rest is just kangaroo court.
Mm-hmm.
It's administrative. It is not in coherence, in congruency, in alignment with what the law is.
Mm-hmm.
It's just their way of baking the cake.
Definitely. I'm so glad we spoke and
Thank you.
came on and told your story, because some people they're afraid to tell their story.
Yeah, well, the system willingly scares you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my son was extorted. If you don't come back, your mom goes to jail.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine my son living his life consciously knowing that he put me in jail? He will never do that, regardless of. He's afraid, as today, of speaking his truth about the abuse and to the entire extent of it. Because he's afraid, number one, nobody has ever believed him that he's been abused. Everybody has said, well, but that happens with parents. Parents do this. I was there when he was told this. So, yeah, people are scared for a reason, because there is abuse of power within the judicial system in family and juvenile court, where you do not have a right. You can be denied due process. You can be denied your version of the context. They can sort out what can you say, what can not you say. They handicap you with other remedy solutions, quote unquote, that are not like this DBT program. I took one for 3 months when I was in family court. The referee forced me to do it. I did it for 3 months, but it was 10 hours per week. I have to pay for that. And I lost my job. Because in my job, they said, well, where are you 4 hours of the day?
Right.
Three days a week. I said, I'm explaining to you that I have this court order, I have to do this. Oh, yeah, we're gonna end your contract. You are very valuable. I was the editor for a healthcare company.
Mm-hmm.
You are valuable, your skills, etc., but we need you here. And if you cannot be here, then you cannot be here. And I lost my job, and I had to rely on my family support to pay for me and my younger son all the expenses.
So wrong. Where does this Holly Knight come in?
Holly Knight, she is the referee
Mm-hmm.
in family court, the one that denied due process to me and refused to provide me hearing dates and suspended my parenting rights and my time with my son based on an incident. My son, a month before, reported to the police that his father was abusive. Mm-hmm. My son was taken in an ambulance to Children Behavioral Unit in a hospital in Minneapolis. It was confirmed that my son had red flags of abuse. Mm-hmm. And the police and the doctor said, request a restraining order, and so the child doesn't go back to the father. That's the way that you can protect your son. They told me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it. The order for protection lasted 1 day.
Oh,
And this referee, Holy Knight, vacated it. Boom, with a magic wand. God, 3 weeks later, without an ex parte motion, I received an email in the morning in 2019, May 8th. I will never forget that day. Was a few days before Mother's Day.
mm.
And they said, your parenting rights have been suspended with no further notice. And my son never came back home.
And they sent that letter knowing that it was going to be Mother's Day.
Absolutely.
They
They
do
did it.
this
Yeah,
all the time.
they did this. Yeah.
Right. Because I had a caseworker in Erie County, and she sent a letter that the case was closed on my birthday, which fell on a Sunday. So I'm like, why would she go into the office on Sunday or type this up on a Sunday to send to me?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
No, they
And
do
that
that.
that was Tina Trahosky, and she did a lot of very foul perjury type of things. Just like,
Oh, absolutely. The perjury that these people do is astonishing.
mhm.
They fabricate their own stories for them to make sense. Doesn't make sense, but for them makes sense. I mean, it's a case for a PhD in psychiatry. Anyways, they justify it. And my last hearing was 2 days after my birthday, like back in September.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's with a purpose.
I feel bad you're being arraigned because that's at taxpayers' expense. It should not even be happening when you're so valuable to society and this police department as an interpreter.
And for the
None
courts.
of this should be happening. I am so sorry. None of this should be happening at all. I hope your son's okay wherever he went.
Yeah, what a way to live your adolescence life when you're supposed to enjoy it and plan for your future and enjoy
Right.
being who you are. My son is bright, is strong. He has this beautiful soul, and for them to just rip apart, like kids would say, that's not cool.
Right.
Yeah,
And his milestones, of, you know, going to prom, whatever, things like that.
they're gone. They're gone. They're
Yeah.
gone.
How wrong. Well, you know what? God is going to deal with these people.
Amen. Absolutely. That is what relieves my soul from many things. I reflect and I said, well, I've seen it with myself, I've seen it with other people. Whatever you do comes back to you. You do good, good comes back to you. You do bad, bad comes to you. And the arbitrary point of this is these people are playing with lives
Mhm.
under the pretext of the law, but the law is arbitrary and they're not even applying it
Mhm.
as it is. They're not applying the real law. They're using the color of the law pretext to obtain profit, to get trips of power. Because every time that I have gone, especially Holy Night, the referee in family court, I could bet, put money on it, that every time she saw me and was able to squash me, suppress me, she would get a high. You could see on her face that she was almost sadist, enjoying how she was making a mother suffer.
A sadist.
Yeah,
She
a
needs a person.
sadist.
Yeah, she needs a psych eval. These judges need psych
They
evals
do.
along with
They
these.
absolutely do.
Yeah, and they need lie detector tests because you know how these opposing attorneys contribute monies to their judge campaigns or their daughter's judge campaigns, and they need random drug screening.
That too.
Maybe
Absolutely.
a breathalyzer on the bench. We were talking about that on a
Yeah.
podcast, but I'd,
Uh-huh.
I'd like to have you come back on for an update.
That
And
would be that would be appreciated.
and if anyone wants to contact Yvette Baudelaire, they can come through me at dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. So, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Very briefly, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to say a little bit of my story to empower my son through this. Mm, Truth will always shine up in the end. And the love that I have for him will get through this podcast to him, for him to remain strong and smart, that things will get solved and people will get their bills for what they did.
Oh, yes.
This is an atrocity, and the more concerning thing for the public to know is that it could happen to any of us.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no privilege on once you are in the system that will soften your situation. Once you get labeled as the bad parent, God be with you.
Mm-hmm.
Judges have abused their power. Social workers, professionals in around this factory of money, this engine of profit. They don't care about the suffering of people. They don't care about the interests of what is best for the child. They just care about themselves. And that's called corruption.
Exactly. People call it a broken system, but it really
No,
isn't. It's a corrupt system.
no, it's a corrupt system.
Yeah.
Because, like I said before, with the explanation of the ball, squeezing it and releasing it, sometimes it works. I cannot say a blanket statement that, for instance, there are cases where it is necessary to apply some solutions or remedies. Yes, there are. I have seen cases myself in my work as an interpreter, or as an analyst. I wrote it in my book about domestic abuse and my experience, how it is. So it's not a blanket statement. It's not a broken system. It's a corrupt system with a sewer, if you will, where there's a lot of filth that needs to be cleaned.
Oh, exactly.
Mhm.
I second that.
Yes.
But hey, don't jump off, okay? Slam the Gavel's a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube. Please like and subscribe, Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, and other platforms I don't even know about. Again, feel free to buy me a cup of coffee to help keep this podcast going. I thank you, Yvette Baudelaire, for sharing your story and having the
Thank you.
strength to do so. Thank you.